6010.
Hello and welcome to Fantasy Focus Football, presented by Boost Mobile. My name is Daniel Dopp, here with the entire crew, Stephania Bell, Yates, and Mike Clay. Guys, we have a huge show set up for today, obviously recapping Stephania's Thursday night football win with the 49ers taking on the Seahawks, and a bunch of other weekly rankings updates and talking about how much we trust players or don't trust players heading into the season. I do want to say this really quickly before we get any deeper into the show, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Fantasy Football Now, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll have so many more injury updates. Stephania, you are going to be busy today, as we do have quite a few injury updates to get through, unfortunately. But it's great to have you here today.
Be like, looking at my nose, looking at the phone, because things are changing.
Yeah, but you know what bothers me?
Every few seconds.
Here's what bothers me, is behind the scenes, Stephania has got a lot on her plate so far this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Remarkably poised and calm. It's ridiculous. Meanwhile, I tried to get into the office today, and my badge won't work, and I've been a complete mess for an hour and a half.
It's true.
ESPN's trying to send me some sort of message, which is fine. She keeps her cool. I am the opposite of that. Let's talk 49ers. Dominant win. A reminder, only one of us picked the Niners to win on the show yesterday, and if memory serves, it was me.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. I picked the right team because Stephania wasn't here, so I represented.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you that you did. Look, Seattle and the 49ers, Seattle always plays 49ers tough, especially in Seattle. I was nervous. I am not going to lie. I was nervous until, I was watching down until the clock ticked 0.00.
Absolutely.
I was too, because I stay up late for every primetime game, so I also waited until. No, the streak continues. 6 straight. You guys, I texted Mike at the end of the game last night. He can confirm this. Anyways, fantasy stuff.
It felt like you had to watch all the way to the end because, Mike, how many times did you say Geno Smith threw the ball in this game?
52, I believe. 52
pass attempts.
Came into the game leading the NFL in pass attempts, and he will exit week 6 and perhaps the rest of the season. Every week, the rest of the season, as the NFL leader in pass attempts. They just keep throwing the ball around.
Amazingly, the irony of that is that Mike McDonald, the new Seahawks head coach, on Monday wore a run the damn ball hat. I'm not joking. I'm not kidding, guys. Like, he actually wore a hat, Seahawks branded, run the damn ball hat, and we have to run the ball better this week. It didn't matter. Let's get to fantasy takeaways, though. And I feel like, Stephania, it's got to go right to you because another 49er goes down.
Yeah.
I have to read this so I don't get emotional.
Your Damian Woody
Very
impression?
upsetting.
Yes, that was your Damian Woody impression.
I'm taking on the Damian Woody sign. Look, Jordan Mason goes down hard on his left shoulder, ends up going to the X-ray room with the medical staff. This happened in the first half. He came back at the start of the second half and actually took the ball and ran 8 yards and then left.
Yep.
Because clearly his shoulder was too uncomfortable. If you saw him on the sidelines during the game, saw him like swinging his arm, it was like he was trying to see if he could move it when he was running. You know, when you go down hard on the tip of your shoulder, there's a few things that come to mind. The fact that he came back in the game suggests no fracture, at least not one that they could see initially from x-rays there. Replaced by Isaac Guerendo, and we'll see what happens going forward because there's no guarantees yet. They do have the mini bye, though, right?
Yes,
because playing Thursday, so they get the 10-day recovery period. So all fingers crossed. But we are getting down deep in that running back depth chart in San Francisco.
Guerendo, just their 4th-string running back, averaging 9.9 yards per carry. Just whatever. It's just typical 49ers.
49ers 4th-round draft pick from this year. Pretty good at finding these
23-pounder around a 4.3, 340 at the combine. Has like 0 tread in the tires. Jordan and I are going to do a little Zoom later on today. We're going to talk shoulder stuff. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was. So that to me, the big story is obviously what happens next for the Niners running backs. We'll talk about that more in the coming days. Stephania mentioned the bye. Kyle Shanahan non-committal last night, but Guerendo certainly will be a topic come Tuesday morning. But for the 49ers, otherwise, it was the Brock Purdy show. He was excellent last night, the best game of his season. He had 3+ passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions, was, borderline flawless last night.
It was his 8th career game with those numbers. And do you know there are only 2 quarterbacks in the NFL who have better, they don't best him. They have 6. Josh Allen and Jared Goff have 6.
He has the most.
He has the most in the time he's been in the league.
Geno kind of dudded last night. I thought the 49ers story, though, and I know we have to be brief here, but another weird week of Brandon Ayuk, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this one was actually minimal usage, right? There were earlier weeks in the season where it was Brandon Ayuk, seeing 10 targets and catching 3 of them. Last night, quiet night for Ayuk once again.
Yeah, he's still on the field. He's going to get the targets. It was a George Kittle and Debo night for sure, and they were leading throughout, so they're able to run the ball. So I don't know. It's just one of them things. He's a little bit boom bust, but he's still out there, and he's going to have his big games, and it's one of those guys you just have to – we talk about these kind of guys every year. You got to start him every year.
Well, I think there's going to be variation, but did you see that Deebo Samuel had actually gone in and talked to Kyle Shanahan, talked about getting him more involved in the game? So there was a specific strategy to engaging Deebo more. Deebo's one of those who gets warmed up as he goes. You notice he plays more, he plays better. He had that huge run last night, got the wheels going. So, look, I think I still trust Brandon Ayuk as he's like going to be a top target, but it's probably going to be week to week in terms of how much fantasy.
Yes, a lot of mouths.
Speaking of the 49ers, I feel like, and maybe I was the only one, but I got a really aggressive message from somebody like as a part of this game. I don't know if we have this to be able to throw it up on the screen, but Stephania texted us, I will challenge anyone who speaks ill of my 49ers to 3 rounds in the ring. Stephania, physical violence?
That was what happened to the private group chat.
Oh, is that? Oh, okay. Got it. Honestly, this was like the 49ers looked absolutely fantastic. It was the Seahawks that left some stuff on the board. DK Metcalf would have had such a better night if not for a bunch of penalties that took plays away from him.
Yeah, I mean, literally, if Ken Walker, if he stops moving, DK Metcalf has like, what, a 60-yard touchdown?
Yes.
Yep.
Something like that.
In the game,
I mean,
too, like 5 minutes to go, it could have become more of a game than it
that's
should have
fantasy
been.
football for you, right?
That is.
People are going to lose. There's going to be how many people lose by less than 10 points because they lose that.
It wasn't because of DK. It was because of those other
Just completely
penalties.
irrelevant. Just a little subtle him moving slightly.
So DK still going to be started every single week.
Oh, yeah.
I think JSN's a little bit of a conversation. Like, I understand if you're disappointed because this is kind of 4 and 6 dud games. When I say dud for JSN, I mean like not like 15 or more, right? Like 10 or 11 / fewer than that.
He had 10 points in this one.
That's not what you're looking for a guy who's that talented, very clearly. The biggest surprise is that they throw the football like -5 yards a play to Kenneth Walker III. So he piles up like 9 catches for 36 yards.
Yeah, it's wild. They are really featuring him. I thought we'd get more with them trailing. I thought we'd get more Charbonnet in the passing game, and that did not happen in this game. But one thing we got to fix here, Geno Smith. I like this is just based on the observations from last night, but I'm wondering if like their red zone struggles going back to last year are due to Geno Smith throwing like little, they call them 50-50 balls, really they're like 20-80 balls. Every pass near the goal line is like
arcing. Yeah.
to Lockett or Jason. They need more higher percentage plays near the goal line because they're not scoring touchdowns, and those plays are not going to work, especially to shorter receivers. It's wild. I don't know why they did that. That cost them that game probably.
Yeah, Geno's the ultimate like test your strength of how much you believe in positive regression because he has exactly 1 passing touchdown in each of the first 6 games this season. He's throwing the ball so much. He's got a 3 wide receivers that you like. He's a good quarterback, and yet he's been bad for fantasy football.
It's been frustrating. Frustrating for fantasy managers that would want
because he has so many pass attempts, but he hasn't turned a lot of touchdowns.
All right, when we come back, we are talking about our quarterback trust meter heading into week 6. Going to be fun. Stick around. Back here on Fantasy Focus, Daniel Dopp, Stephania Bell, Yates, and Mike Clay. Guys, let's talk about some quarterback trust meter conversations. Guys that we're deciding whether or not we do or don't trust them heading into week 6. I want to be quick with this first one. Josh Allen.
I don't want to be quick. This is interesting to me.
2 weeks is quarterback 1. 3 weeks outside the top 16, Mike, on your trust level. Where is it that you're putting him?
Yeah, so how about this stat I pulled yesterday? 3 weeks is QB 17 or worse this season. You just said, you know how many times you did that last year?
19.
All of
0.
last year.
0. Dang it.
One time.
One time he finished worse than QB 16 a week. He's done it 3 times in 5 games already this season. And you look a little deeper at the numbers here, 7th in carries, 10th in expected touchdowns. He's never, on the ground, he's never finished lower than 5th, so not getting as much goal line work. 0 carries inside the 5 so far this season, outside the top 20 in pass attempts, completions, and passing yards. And this week they're playing the New York Jets, who have not allowed anyone to even get to 12 fantasy points in a game. So, look, you start Josh Allen, but the performance hasn't been what we're used to, and this is a brutal matchup.
Yeah, I've got
Where
him
would
as
it be on
quarterback
this trust meter? Mike, if you had to pick something from this.
Trust meter, I don't want to say everything's fine because it's different than usual. I mean, it's still set it to forget it. It has to be, but I almost, it's like this is a little different so far. Like, is this something you think we need to be a little worried about, or it's going to fix itself?
Yeah, we'll see whether the Bills, who are now in a desperate time, change some things about where they're playing offense right now. To your point, Mike, so just to take this a little bit further on the rushing front, last season, he had 5 total games without a rushing touchdown. He's gotten 4 straight without a rushing touchdown. We just haven't seen it from Josh Allen.
Way early.
He also has under 200 passing yards in 3 of his last 4 games. You're still going to play him. On the silver lining side, he is Josh Allen. The Jets thing, I was like, man, I bet this is a terrible matchup for him personally. over his last 8 meetings against the Jets, Josh Allen has finished as a top 8 quarterback 6 out of those 8 games. So it's it's an outstanding defense. But Josh Allen, albeit in different circumstances, has largely held up against this Jets team.
Sure has, yeah.
Yeah, I still think with where you drafted him and what you're doing at the quarterback spot, he's a full trust for me in my lineup, even though I would want more production from him. He's like a death and taxes.
It's more like let's monitor this.
How often are we ranking him quarterback 8? The answer is very infrequently.
Correct.
He's quarterback 8 for me this week.
Yeah. All right. What about C.J. Stroud? I mean, this one is another interesting one. 3rd in passing yards per game, 5th in pass attempts per game.
Yeah.
But it still hasn't been Field quite what you would. I mean, I should say this. It's sort of similar to what you saw his rookie season because he's not utilizing his legs, but he's not been quite as efficient with his arm this year.
6.8 points as a runner so far this season in 5 games. So that's like less than 1.3 points per game.
Jared Goff level.
1.4 points per game.
Yeah.
As a runner for C.J. Stroud. That's not going to do it. So he's a weekly starter for me still. It's a very good matchup still. I think they could just run all over this Patriots team this weekend, albeit with Drake May under center. It's just harder for him to reach peak upside. It just is.
He doesn't
run. And we talked about this coming into the season.
100%. This is why he was not one of my favorite targets in drafts because I'm like maybe QB7 is like his ceiling. He's just not going to get there without that rushing. And QB7 is his best week so far this season. He does have 300-plus passing yards in back-to-back games, but now no Nico Collins, too, which is going to hurt his outlook. So, he's 15th for me this week at New England, a game, again, where I think they're going to be able to run.
He's so freaking good. I just want to say that out loud, just because he's an amazing player who, just for fantasy purposes, is like a very good player as opposed to an amazing player.
Is he everything's fine, or is he set it and forget it at this point? Would you bench?
I think if you've been riding C.J. Stroud, to me, he's still your starting quarterback this week. I've got him as quarterback 12, a little bit low. There's a couple guys who have more favorable outlooks because of their matchup. Sure. So I would say he's set it then forget it.
I'm at 15, so I'd go in the orange probably.
Wow.
I'd say an absolute bench, but more on the orange side.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to start him this week, ideally.
Fair enough.
Interesting.
This next one could be simple, though.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, Stephania, I want to ask, and we are going to get into that Nico Collins injury. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. Stephania, Justin Herbert.
Oh, this one's brutal.
Quarterback 27 right now in the season.
Yeah, I know.
Where are you at on this guy?
I was out on him before the season started.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that I've gone anywhere. Certainly haven't gone up, right? Because you add into the mix the fact that he's held this. He started with a high ankle sprain, then he was dealing with another injury on top of it, and he can't, hasn't been able to move. The plantar fasciitis is where he started. Then he had the high ankle sprain. Now he's, everybody. The passing game is just not it. In Chargers, it's the run game. And so he does nothing for me. He wasn't ever going to run.
No.
Anyway.
Quarterback 30 in pass attempts. 30 in pass attempts. Quarterback 30 in passing yards. Has yet to finish inside the top 20. 11.2 fantasy points was his best week so far this season. I trust him as much as I trust my dog not to eat a cookie off the table when I walk into the other room.
How many passing yards do you think is the number that he has reached at his highest point so far this season in a game?
I know the answer, so I won't say it.
Okay.
You're teeing me up for something low, but I would say
how low?
225?
I was going to go 185.
144.
Very close.
Yeah.
144.
His highest is, I have 179. He hasn't cleared 179. But anyway, it's low. Yeah. That was the stat I was going to use. He hasn't thrown more than 27 passes or cleared 179 yards. YPA is 6.4, which is brutal. And he has run in the past. When he was at the peak of his fantasy value, he was running a lot, but he's not this year. And he obviously not fully healthy.
For his life.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Well, yeah, 24 rushing yards on the season. That's 5 passing touchdowns, but they played Denver, a really tough matchup. Again, this is a guy where in the offseason we talked about how it's so weird for a guy that's this good. We all agree is like potentially an MVP candidate. He's been a fantasy superstar, elite dynasty quarterback. To be buried that far in our rankings, this is why you're seeing it. There's the low volume, slow moving offense. There's not enough there for him to score fantasy points.
He's an easy nope, and I don't want to be dismissive of the player because he's awesome in real life. But consider this like the last time that we address whether you need to start or sit Justin Herbert until he gives us reason to enter the conversation.
Yeah.
Like this is
he's not even
October
a streaming
11th.
option.
Yes, right. Like you won't hear from us on Justin Herbert for quite some time unless he gets it turned around in a hurry.
All right, well, speaking of streaming options, what about this guy, Daniel Jones? Quarterback 17 in fantasy points per game. Stephania, actually, I want to ask you, do we have a Malik Neighbors update on his top pass catcher?
On Malik Neighbors himself or his top pass
Well,
catcher?
no, on Malik Neighbors himself.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors obviously missed a game already after suffering the concussion, but this week was really interesting. And if you guys know, we all talk about this being nonlinear, and this is a case in point. Malik Neighbors listed as a non-participant, but on Wednesday was doing a little bit more activity on the side. Mm-hmm. Dan Dugan from The Athletic reported this nugget, and I think it's really critical. He was doing more football-style work, individual drills. On Thursday, just riding the exercise bike, which if you look at the sort of the activity progression in the protocol, that feels like a little bit of a step back, you know, whether it was because he experienced something that made them scale it back, or it just doesn't feel like a gradual move forward. So obviously we're recording this in the morning. And in the afternoon, if he turns in a bigger practice, maybe his status changes, but I don't feel great about it going into this weekend.
I'm planning on him not being available for the Giants on Sunday night. I feel pretty good about saying that right
Well,
now.
he didn't have him last week, and he still honestly wasn't that bad. I didn't feel like.
Been a top 11 quarterback in 3 of his past 4 games has Daniel Jones. And so we know Daniel Jones is going to run the football a decent amount. He's got 34 rushing attempts. That's 5th most amongst quarterbacks. But putting aside like how he's getting there, I'll just say this. He's playing well. Like, shout out to Daniel Jones. Over his past 3 games, 6 touchdowns, just 1 interception. As we know, one of the big criticisms, it's one of the big facts about Daniel Jones is he turns the football over way too much. Just 1 pick in the past 3 games. This Bengals defense is terrible. I've got him as quarterback 9 this week. One of my favorite streamers.
Yeah, I'm at 12. All excellent points. I usually don't trust players named Daniel for obvious people named Daniel or anything like that. But you're right. Cincinnati struggled. And we consider him to be a quarterback who can run the football. And Cincinnati's played Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels, running quarterbacks, 28-plus fantasy points. So both of those guys, I'm not saying Jones is on that level, but he's that kind of quarterback. So, yeah, he's a streamer this week.
I also think it's worth just, to give him a little more pat on the back. This is a guy coming off an ACL injury. And we talked about it with Kyler Murray when he came back from his, how we were like concerned about how he'd look running. Now, obviously, they're not the same type of runner, but you always counted on Daniel Jones to be able to get you yards with his legs. And when that first game, it was ugly. But remember, he really didn't play. So this was really him getting back acclimated to football, to getting confidence in that knee, both for running and for throwing. And I think sort of what you've seen is him having more confidence in his physical self, as well as, maybe having benefit of elite neighbors as well.
I love this. I mean, fantasy projection, Mike, 18.31 fantasy points. He's had 3 weeks with at least 18 fantasy points. That's 3 more weeks than a guy named Patrick Mahomes has had so far in fantasy this year.
All right, piling it on. Any chance you
Any
can
chance
get.
really is like you just take it.
I do. I really do. It's so weird. It's just so frustrating because I have Patrick Mahomes in like 4 different leagues, and it's like I don't know what to do with him because I can't trade him. I'm not going to drop him, but it's just like I'm stuck in this no man's land.
I think this weekend you should play him.
You think so? This is the week?
It feels like a good
specifically.
week.
Yeah.
I guarantee no incompletions this weekend from Mahomes.
One more quarterback I want to dive into, another guy that was, I think, on the streaming radar to start the season, and I think he's maybe worked his way quite a bit higher than that, and that's Justin Fields. I mean, everything that he is doing, not doing great stuff with his arm, right? And that's sort of been like the thing on Justin Fields, but his leg volume is just unbelievable, Mike Clay. 4th in rush attempts, 6th in rushing yards per game, and he's getting more goal line work than Najee Harris is.
Yeah, I think, 2 weeks ago, he had his 2nd highest passing yardage total of his career, too. So he's getting you at least something there. He does only have the 1 top 12 week, though, which is kind of interesting. Now, he's had 15-plus in 3 straight, 3 total touchdowns in all 3 of those games. So he is trending up, but we need more yardage to go along with those touchdowns. 8 total touchdowns, 1 interception. To your point about Daniel Jones, he's also not turning the ball over, and of course crushing it in the rushing categories. Raiders, kind of mid-pack, looks like a mid-pack matchup, but look who they played. They've allowed 23-plus fantasy points to Andy Dalton and Bo Nix. Lamar had 16, Deshaun Watson 12, Justin Herbert, who we just talked about, only 10. So that's a worse pass defense than it seems on paper. So Fields in a good spot. He should be in lineup.
Does he set it and forget it at this point, or is he
for
still
this week?
Okay.
He might not have the
He's
job.
more
Is
like
he, everything's fine.
I think it's more everything's fine. Just because we have talked about how like there's been of the 5 games he's played so far this season, there's been 1 where you're like, this was totally worth it. That was quarterback 1. I will also note that was the only game this season that Pittsburgh was playing from behind all game, right? They have played every other game with either a lead or playing a competitive back and forth game like Dallas. So I do have him as quarterback 10. He's a bit more, he's one of those guys that like still makes me a touch nervous. The rushing is great, but if they take care of business against this Raiders team, which I expect them to do, this could easily be like a 21-12 game in Pittsburgh's favor.
And like going forward, we talk about like over the next month value-wise. I mean, he might not have this job next week if he has a couple turnovers in this game. So just have a backup plan if he's your current starter in fantasy.
Yeah, well, he shouldn't be anyone's main player because he was either added off of waivers or you play in the deepest of deep leagues because he wasn't really drafted as a starter.
What if you have Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
You know what?
Picked up Justin Fields.
You know what? You're not wrong, Phil Yates.
Saying.
I can't believe you're such a hater on Patrick Mahomes.
I love Patrick Mahomes. I'm a nice guy around here.
You are the nice guy around here. I'm the bad guy around here. All right, when we come back, we are talking about some Week 6 massive questions heading into the week, what you should be able to do. Stick around. Back here on Fantasy Focus Football, Daniel Dopp, Stephania Bell, Field Yates, and Mike Clay, the entire crew. We are talking about some huge questions heading into Week 6. Stephania, I'm going to start with you because we're going to talk about the Houston Texans receiving core here a little bit. Give me an update, though, on both Nico Collins and Joe Mixon, I believe, as well.
So Nico Collins, we talked earlier in the week about him having a hamstring injury, and I remember I mentioned the average amount of missed time for a wide receiver. Do you remember what that number
6,
was?
right?
It was like in the 5.5 to 5.5 games across the board, 5.9 for wide receivers. That's looking at 9 years of data. That's the full spectrum of hamstring injuries. Obviously, for grade 1s, it's a little bit less. The minute they put him on IR, I'm like, he's going to potentially could hit it back right around that 5-week mark. So Nico Collins out for at least 4 weeks. And remember, do you remember Aaron Jones last year when he hurt his hamstring and he didn't think it was that bad initially? Nico Collins had said, yeah, I'm good when he had this hamstring injury. Sometimes they just end up being worse than these guys think initially. So no Nico Collins for a while. Joe Mixon back in limited practice on Thursday, still angry about how he got hurt. Talked about that quite a bit. He said the plan is to go through practice on Friday and make a decision on whether they go or wait a week. Just the fact that that's an option and he's just getting back in practice makes me feel like it's going to be another week, but obviously stay tuned for practice reports.
I kind of broke it down like this. They play the Patriots, so it might be a week where you think bigger picture as well. You should take care of business on the road. There's sort of 3 different scenarios. If Joe Mixon plays, I'm playing him. He's the only back that I am playing from the Texans. Dameon Pierce now practicing on a full-time basis as well. So if there's no Joe Mixon, but there is Dameon Pierce, I prefer not to play any Texans running back because I think Dario Ogunbowale will play, and heck, Cam Akers might even get a series or 2 at some point in the game.
Yep.
If there's no Joe Mixon and no Dameon Pierce, which seems unlikely at this point because Pierce practiced in full yesterday.
Definitely trending the right way.
Then I think Ogunbowale moves into the flex option.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Ogunbowale is outplaying Cam Akers right now. Got a lot of production last week. Actually, 2 straight games. A lot of it's been in the passing game. Perfect world, you avoid all of these guys. I mean, all of these guys if Mixon's out. But I agree with you. Even if he's limited, I think we start Mixon if he's a go in this one.
What about for the wide receiving core? Obviously, without Nico Collins, we've been waiting to have this situation creep up, which sounds awful to say. I don't want to say it that way. But, like, in order for Tank Dell to feel like he has fantasy value, one of these other wide receivers needed to not be there. Mike,
it's time, baby.
Is he a set it and forget it starter based on what we saw last year, or are you a little nervous about that?
Yeah, I think so. I think both should be in lineups. I have Dell at 29, so unless you're stacked, a receiver probably starting him. Stephon Diggs obviously going to be the number 1 here. I think he draws Christian Gonzalez shadow treatment throughout a chunk of this game. Maybe not full time. Gonzalez goes in the slot once in a while, and we know Diggs moves around, so he'll see a lot of him. But that's going to free up Dell. He's in a good spot in this one, and feel good about the matchup. And of course, we've seen his upside, 20+ points 4 times last season, and he missed half the season. So he's been productive when he's been called on to be the number 1 or number 2 receiver, and he should be the clear 2 in this game.
Averaged over 15 yards per catch last season. Just a reminder of how talented this player is.
Good kid.
And this is like a deep league / daily fantasy consideration. Just know the name Xavier Hutchinson. You play in the deep league. You're playing DFS. You're looking for a sneaky option here. Xavier Hutchinson, 6th-round pick out of Iowa State a couple of years ago. Should be the clear wide receiver 3 in this offense.
It'd be tough to find room on my bench in a 10 to 12 team league right now. But yeah, deeper league, like you're talking about, someone that you should be considering. All right, let's talk about the Bills and the Jets. We've mentioned it a couple times already. Stephania, I feel like we need to get a couple of injury updates. Let's start with the Bills.
Yeah, toe injuries are going to be making themselves known this week. We got a few players on a few different teams dealing with toe injuries, including James Cook of the Bills. Did not practice on Thursday, just riding the bike. He has been out there, so at least he's close by doing the mental reps, if you will. We'll see what happens with him. Khalil Shakir injured his ankle. He did some work on the side this week, but he has not officially practiced, so stay tuned for him.
It's crazy that none of these pass catchers in Buffalo have established themselves in a way that makes me feel confident with Khalil Shakir out, that like, oh man, that guy is a definite starter. Like we just said with Tank Dell, right? We've been waiting for this.
None of them.
I don't know who to choose. It's a dart throw.
That includes Dalton Kincaid, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, he's still startable for sure, but I thought like if all the wide receivers were struggling like they have, you'd have a big Dalton Kincaid season.
Me too.
That has not been the case so far this year. have a perfect sense on those two Bills pass catchers, but if Khalil Shakir does play, he'd be a wide receiver 4 for me. He's starting to remind me of what Mohamed Sanu was all those years ago, where it was like 5 to 7 targets per game, catches like 90% of them, scores like between 9 and 14 fantasy points most often. Useful player to have on your bench as a wide receiver.
And that's their best receiver in fantasy. Keon Coleman and Matt Collins were the only Bills to catch a pass, wide receiver to catch a pass last week. Coleman had the long touchdown. That was his only catch. And then Matt Collins had like 2 for 24. That was it. Yeah. Curtis Samuel, we talked about him playing kind of filling in for Shakir in the slot. And he did that. He was second in snaps. But he didn't get the targets. It just didn't turn into any receptions for him in that game. So can't start him, obviously. Coleman, if you want to throw a dart in the flex, if Shakir's out, fine. But he is a brutal matchup. 96% of the time he's on the perimeter. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, the best corner duo in the NFL. It's a brutal matchup. And this is a guy that hasn't even cleared 51 yards in a good matchup yet this season, or any matchup. So you can't trust these guys.
We'll talk about the Jets wide receivers in a second, and the offense in general if need be. But I do want to, Mike and I were talking about this just before the show, just if James Cook sits, what are our expectations? I think, if you followed the Bills in the preseason, you'd probably be saying to yourself, James Cook out Ray Davis time, right? That's possible. I do think it's possible. I'm not dismissing that by any stretch, but maybe Ty Johnson too, Mike?
Yeah, just learn from what we've seen from other teams when the top running back's been out, including Houston, who we just talked about. They're going to use 2 guys. And Ray Davis might be the future clear number 2, but he's not right now. Ty Johnson is the 2. He's been out there in passing situations. A lot of Davis's run has come in garbage time so far when he's piled up late game carries. So I expect them to very much be a committee. Both guys are going to play. Johnson will have a lean in passing situations. Davis on early downs. But I think Johnson's probably the guy I would project higher from a fantasy standpoint.
This is a coaching staff that values the little things, right? Part of the reason why Keon Coleman's got a suppressed role so far is he's still learning the nuances. Ty Johnson does the little things, right? He's a veteran of 4 or 5 seasons as opposed to Ray Davis, who's still, a very green player in the NFL. Do you guys have any expectations of like a change for the Jets offense because of the new coordinator, Daniel?
That was the big question that I had. I was going to say, Mike, you're the projection guru here. Mm-hmm. When you have a head coach and an offensive coordinator, well, not an offensive coordinator change, but a new play caller. Yeah, how do you decide that with the projections? Do you change anything, or is it like a wait and see kind of thing?
Yeah, probably wait and see this week. I think I would imagine based on the last 2 weeks, they're going to be like, all right, we got to get Breece Hall the ball a little more. Yeah. But we expect that anyway. He had 3 good games to start the season, has fallen off the last 2.
More on Breece.
I think there will be an effort to get him involved in this game. But that's,
Garrett Wilson is still a must-start. Obviously, Breece Hall is still a must-start. I'm probably not playing Alan Lazard unless it's like I'm going up against Mike for like an insult to injury kind of situation.
Why would you want to start the league leader in drops? That'd be a weird.
Wow. By the way, the NFL credited Garrett Wilson with an extra target during their stat corrections this week.
Really?
Up to 23 last week for Garrett Wilson.
That's incredible.
Yeah, lock him in. By the way, Ty Johnson, the most anticipated revenge game of the season for sure, going up against his old Jets.
Yeah, love it. All right, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens and the Washington Commanders.
Best 1 p.m. game of the season so far?
Yes.
It's up there.
So excited.
Maybe the best, most anticipated game of the season so far, based on what
fun.
we've seen so far. Yeah.
Mike, do you want to go double or nothing on our Jaden Daniels Lamar board bet? Which one of them is going to be?
Who won now? I don't even remember.
Lamar Jackson. I won that one.
You did?
That's why
Yeah, but if you want to go double or nothing, we can do a loser buys the winner a gold vinyl 1/1 Jake Bobo signed rookie card on eBay.
Is that like $1?
It was only like $700 yesterday when I looked at it.
$700?
Yeah.
Disgusting, Mike, that you would ever say something so disgraceful and disrespectful.
We love both of these quarterbacks. You should start both of them. But it's going to be so much fun to be able to watch this. The real big question, honestly, all jokes aside, because like I said, you're starting both those quarterbacks. It's asking about the running backs, Stephania, because we saw Brian Robinson come into the game last week banged up, still played, still got in the end zone. But there was also plenty of Austin Eckler, who I think was limited at practice this week. And you saw Jeremy McNichols last week.
Yeah, Brian Robinson didn't play a snap in the second half. Now, it's unclear whether that had to do more with how the game was flowing or the fact that his knee was banged up, because we know it was problematic going into the game, and he has not practiced since. I'm told he's been walking around the facility fine. He's wearing a sleeve on that leg, but we haven't seen anything from him yet. Now, the plan could be do what we did last week. Rest him all week, have him get ready on Friday, and save him for the game. But as of now, when we're recording this, we don't really have a sense of whether something has changed with his status or they're just trying to preserve him to allow him to get through the game as well as possible.
Yeah, if he's out, I think we're going to be looking at, again, a two-headed committee. You're going to see a lot of Jeremy McNichols. Austin Eckler becomes probably a lineup lock. He's been playing very well. He's been between 10 and 14 fantasy points every game this season because of that very limited role he plays, but the efficiency has been outstanding. However, Baltimore cannot stop the pass. dominant against running backs so far. 2.9 yards per carry. A lot of that second lowest, second fewest yards, fifth fewest fantasy points. So it is a tough matchup, but based on what Eckler can do in the passing game, he'll certainly be a top 25 option.
Eckler's efficiency is ridiculous so far this season.
It is.
Did you guys know this? He's averaging 7.9 yards per rush. Obviously, it would be a career high by a lot. And 13.7 yards per catch. So despite the fact that he's yet to play 50% of the snaps in a game, over 50% of the snaps in the game, he's been a top 25 back 3 out of 5 weeks. And a 32nd ranked back in the 4th of 5 weeks. So
yeah, he's like no ceiling, but high floor, a flex floor, but he's not going to be like an RB1. He's just
found the fountain of youth is what it feels like here in this offense. Yeah, good for him.
Well, it's not when you go from 250 carries and 80 targets to what does he have? 30 opportunities in 4 games so far. That'll help.
Yep. When we're looking at the Baltimore Ravens, I just want to say this: Mark Andrews still rostered in 78% of leagues.
He
was only started last week in 37% of leagues, so he was benched in over half of the leagues that he was rostered in. He's got fewer snaps,
last week too,
routes, targets, receptions, receiving yards, end zone targets, and touchdowns, fewer in all those categories than Isaiah Likely this season. Plus, and here's the kicker for everyone, fewer run block wins than both Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar for those playing in points per blocking league.
Wow.
And for that reason,
Ain't even playing those.
I'm out.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, still only played 55% of the snaps. So that was a good statistical day. I think it was his best statistical day of the season last week, and it still
doesn't feel good.
He's still nowhere close to being a viable.
Is this the biggest puzzle?
Biggest mystery of the season
so far. Biggest mystery of the
It's
season.
up there for sure. Yeah, I mean, even on a day when Lamar had 42 passing yards, that was tied for the second most in his career. You couldn't get more out of Mark Andrews than 16 routes run and 4 catches. Yeesh.
And by the way, it's a mystery because we don't have an explanation for it. Like the team's not. They're like, no, everything's fine. It's normal. We're just doing it. Right. But it's very much not normal from what we've seen the last 5 years. So I don't know.
It's a guy who came back from major surgery last year and limped, but still contributed in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah.
And then healthy and nothing.
I just wish they would say, like, yeah, you know what? He's just still getting right. When you want to get him back to 100%, we're going to limit him the first half of this. Just say that.
Just say it. Yes.
But if they're acting like everything's fine, so I'm like, is
They're
this a whole
gaslighting
season?
us.
He'd be about 7 weeks too late on injury reports, and they might have about $1 million in fines if they say that he's been hurt.
I don't know.
The last 2 months.
It's bizarre.
All right, when we come back, we're going to continue our Week 6 preview, Part 2. Stick around. Back here on Fantasy Focus, Daniel Dopp, Stephania Bell, Jates, and Mike Clay. We got a digital-only segment, changing to the fantasy guard, players that we see potentially taking over their position groups and how we should approach them here in Week 6. Let's talk about the New Orleans Saints and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Stephania, I'm going to start with you on this one. We talked a little bit yesterday, and we'll dive into it more about Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, but who's going to be throwing passes to those two guys?
How does Spencer Rattler sound to you?
Get a rattle on.
I know.
I have some of those.
Sounds intimidating.
rattles?
No, I was thinking like rattle of a rattlesnake. Sounds
Oh,
intimidating.
that one's a little bit more intimidating.
Yeah, well, it won't be Derek Carr because he's out with an oblique injury. Now, they called this a multiple week injury, but it's unclear what multiple really means. You know, we've seen players come back very quickly. Brock Purdy, stud that he is, played through an oblique injury in 2022, never missed any time. Christian McCaffrey also didn't miss time. We know about Walker in Seattle, missed 2 games because of an oblique abdominal injury. But when it's a quarterback, it's the rotational, it's the torsion and the power that you need throwing that makes it so problematic. So I have to go to college. I have to go to Quinn Ewers, who's missed a few games because of an oblique injury. And I think it's much harder for a quarterback to deal with because if you're lacking power, whether it's pain or true muscle weakness, you can't get the ball down the field where you need it to go.
Now that Quinn Ewers is back to play this Saturday, the Saints are currently negotiating with Texas to borrow Arch Manning for Sunday's game.
Just to call him up almost.
I mean,
back to
right,
the whole
it'd
thing.
be like go full circle going home,
Yeah,
right?
why not?
For
Yeah,
the
I mean,
Saints, why not?
It'd be a dream to play for his grandpa's team.
I do want to I want to tap into your college expertise here. Like, what can you tell us if we don't know enough about Spencer Rattler?
Spencer Rattler going into his sophomore season at his second starting season at Oklahoma was considered the Heisman favorite. And then this guy Caleb Williams came in during the game against Texas and lit it up and like completely became an Oklahoma legend within like one half of football. Rattler ends up at South Carolina and much lesser team, right? So I always said like last year, the biggest thing with Rattler was he was constantly I would say guilty of trying to get it all back in one play. They'd fall behind 14-0. He tried to make some YOLO throw, picked off, 14-0 becomes 21-0. But good thrower. Like I was stunned he went in the 5th round. I thought he would go somewhere between like the early 3rd to the late 4th at worst. Talented arm, decent athlete, going to impact the game a little bit with his legs, and a confident guy, very confident guy. And he is saying all the right things this week about Chris Olave.
Yes, he is. I saw that.
Now, whether that means Chris Olave will get more work or not remains to be determined, because the numbers would certainly say that there is a number one wide receiver in New Orleans, and it is not Chris Olave.
Yeah, not lately. You look at the splits between Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Shaheed has an edge over Olave in targets, 33-29, carries 5-1, and air yards 562 to 277, a massive gap. So obviously Shaheed getting the more volume and more high value volume. So it's been a problem. Now Olave did have 80-plus yards in 3 straight before that dud last week, but he does, the fantasy output has not been great this season. Odds are the passing game here, the offense as a whole, is going to take a step back for a little while. I mean, maybe Rattler is the real deal and he steps in and he has like a Will Levis did in his debut last year. He had the 4-touchdown game, maybe, but that's not what you should be counting on when you're setting your fantasy lineup. So
it is a good matchup at the very
I do have Shaheed ranked a little ahead of Olave in this one, but I moved them down both about 10 spots with Carr out and Rattler in, so they're flex options. They're definitely not lineup locks based on what we've seen so far and the quarterback change.
Maybe a part of the Olave love is because Rashid Shaheed was out on Wednesday because of a hip issue. He did practice on Thursday. He said it's minor. He expects to play. This is not a case of him going to sit out, but maybe. You don't get that many reps when you're the guy coming in. And if you get a whole day with Chris Olave, who's been trying to get the ball, maybe that's where your bonding goes and you do look for him.
It's like, wait, this is way better than the practice squad receivers I usually throw to, because he's been really the 3. I mean, I'm sure he's getting 2 reps, but he's been the 3 because Jay Kainer's been the number 2.
Yeah, Rashid Shaheed, 4 games with at least 15 fantasy points. Chris Olave, only 2 games with at least 15 fantasy points. So like you said, it does kind of feel like a changing of the fantasy guard there, but we'll see with all the things that Spencer Rattler is saying about Chris Olave, how things work out here in week 6.
We kind of have this chapter of wide receivers that are so talented and they've done it before, that you just don't know if you should be starting them week in and week out. Like Chris Olave, Brandon Ayuk, Devontae Adams when he is healthy and plays for the Raiders, I guess, right? Where it's like, Zay Flowers, like you should be playing these guys. Like everything tells you in your brain to play them, and then you play them and they don't perform well, and you're like, why do I play this? Why do I play fantasy football?
Olave's that guy too. In the offseason, we're like, you know what? There's a cutoff at receiver, and we're like, all right, there's that next big tier. And Olave kind of led it for all of us, and we ranked him like 8th, 9th, 10th in that sort of range. And it was like, he hasn't done that yet, though. All the big target shares, the pedigree, the situation, he hasn't done it yet. Will he do it in year 3? And he has not done it yet. So maybe we erred on that one. But he's going to be an interesting kind of player over the next few months to kind of figure out where he kind of falls in the long-term landscape of fantasy football.
Indeed.
Hey, is this going to be one of those spots, Mike, where we have the classic wide receiver cornerback shadow of Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore?
Yeah, you're darn right. I don't know if we have the graphic here. I posted it on social yesterday. The history of Mike Evans versus the Saints since Marshawn Lattimore has been drafted, and it's wild. It's actually more wild than even I realized, because Evans cannot produce against the Saints. It's just unreal. So this is round 12. He's played him a lot, but this is the 12th time that Lattimore is likely to shadow him. In 15 games against the Saints since Lattimore was drafted, Mike Evans is averaging 9.5 fantasy points per game.
Wow. Seems bad.
He's averaging 17.1 per game in every other game that he's played.
Holy smokes.
17.1 versus 9.5. He has reached, in his career, 13 fantasy points one time against the Saints, and that was in 2018. So think about that. I mean, I downgraded him. He's down at 22 for me. Hard to bench a guy that has 5 touchdowns already this season. But he's had 2 duds, too. He's had 3 good games, 2 duds this year. History says this will be a dud. I will say this. Lattimore has shadowed 1 time since the start of last season, and it was, of course, Mike Evans early last season. I expect that to be the case here.
I can't wait.
It's going to be so good.
Will they both finish the game on the field?
That's the question. I was just going to say that.
Even
Makers are possible.
Yeah, it is, but also like injuries. Those two have not. They keep missing each other. They haven't actually played each other a lot the last few years because like Evans last year left a game hurt early. That actually the game where he shadowed him, and then Lattimore was out the whole second half of the season and missed the second matchup. So yeah, they've been beat up as well. But it is unreal. Definitely the most one-sided shadow one-on-one matchup I've ever seen since I've been doing this.
You know that this is in their heads, both of them. Like,
No doubt.
yeah. And Evans wants to break the cycle, and Lattimore's
This might be his chance because Lattimore, I don't know if Lattimore's their best corner now, honestly. I mean, Debo is awesome on the other side. So maybe not having his best year so far, but he was elite last year.
I don't think that we have seen a changing of the guard in the Tampa Bay backfield, but we have seen the gap narrow between Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. But Stephania, You have an update for us potentially on Rachaad White and his status for this week.
Yeah, he didn't practice yesterday with a foot injury after being limited on Wednesday. So for him to be gone completely yesterday does make you wonder if this is going to be a chance for Bucky Irving to really take it over.
Nice start to the week for my my fantasy focused show league team that has Michael Pittman Jr. and Brian Robinson Jr. and
Rachaad White
and Christian McCaffrey.
Well, can I give you an interesting stat?
Got it.
Yeah.
Give you an interesting stat?
Bring it.
Last 2 weeks, 37 running backs have more than 15 carries. Okay? Rachaad White ranks where in yards per carry?
I know this.
Go with
so I'm gonna-
94th.
No, where do you think? Serious answer. Where do you think?
35th.
Fourth.
Oh.
He's rolling. He's heating up as a runner. 6.1 yards per carry the last 2 weeks. So, he's beaten Irving easily in that category. So, I mean, the rushing is fixing itself a little bit in that department, and we know he's the preferred passing down specialist. But I think that just shows you how the point of that is yards per carry can fly all over the place. So White was getting criticized for the low yards per carry the first 3 weeks, and Irving the opposite, and now it's kind of flipped. So I don't think White's going anywhere. I think he's going to sustain that 1A role for a while.
Bucky Irving still averaging over 3 yards before first contact. Rachaad White 0.65. So it does feel like Bucky Irving.
The offensive lineman likes. They
That's
like
what it
Bucky
is.
more, right?
That's
So
what it
they
is.
block better for him.
Because they don't bring in new offensive linemen for these running backs. It's the same crew.
That's always a tricky stat. It's because some agile running backs will be able to avoid that initial contact, but sometimes it's based on scheme as well. Like White might be going between the tackles more, or could be outside zones for Irving or something like that. So that's always been a tricky stat.
All right, let's move ahead. Talk about another team here, another situation. The Steelers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Stephania, can you give us an update on 2 Raiders in Zamir White and Jacoby Myers?
Yeah, Jacoby Myers has an ankle injury, has not practiced yet this week, and Zamir White dealing with a groin injury. Obviously, he missed last week. Yeah, yeah. If you know, you know. He missed last week against the Broncos and still has not practiced yet this week.
We're out on Zamir White as it is anyways, and I think we're all out on Alexander Madison.
No.
Yeah, you'll be shocked to learn that last week without Zamir White, it was a 2-headed committee in the Raiders backfield. It's like every team, it's the same exact
You're just
story.
on repeat, Mike. You just keep saying that.
Yeah, Amir Abdullah played a lot, 28 snaps in that game, scored a touchdown, but they basically split the backfield. They actually both got to double-digit fantasy points, but barely. I mean, you don't want to touch anyone in this backfield.
You do not. The Raiders ranked 30th in rushing yards per game. The Steelers allowed the 3rd fewest points per game to opposing running backs. Watching the Raiders right now is a tough experience, except for Brock Bowers.
Well, they're going to have Aiden O'Connell under center this week rather than Gardner Minshew, and I got to tell you.
No? Did you say?
No, I just don't want.
I'm out. Yeah, I mentioned
than
this
Brock
last
So your
week.
analysis, no.
When we looked at the split, once AOC came in and replaced Gardner Minshew, Brock Bowers was not nearly as efficient or effective from a fantasy perspective. Gardner Minshew was the guy that targeted him more, got him in the end zone, did all these different things. It didn't feel great with Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah, the sample size is small enough that I might be willing to dismiss it. That being said, I'm not a believer. I'm just not. I watched last season, right? And the number of sacks taken and just the general lack of efficiency with that passing game gives me zero excitement watching this team. Jacoby Myers has been busy recently. He's got 9 or more targets in 3 straight games. It's a bad matchup, but he might not play. So I am out on this Raiders offense if I can entirely be other than Brock Bowers.
Yeah, I have Myers at 25, so I have no problem starting him. I mean, it's hard to argue with 9+ targets in 3 straight games. But wait, you're saying that going into the season with Minshew and O'Connell was a bad plan? That's what you're saying?
6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks definitely hurt them.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
6 quarterbacks in the
No,
first
no.
12 picks.
Yeah.
Brock Bowers is a great player, obviously, but I do wonder what would have happened if Michael Penix Jr. was sitting there at number 13.
My gosh.
That would have been something. All right, let's talk about the other side of this one. Do you guys think, Field, first off, I just want to say this. I appreciate you not showing up to work with a big curse word all over your jersey attire.
Oh, yes.
On his sling?
Yes.
Yeah, it was on his sling.
It
but
would have
he's
been
not
on a
wearing
sling.
it.
Yeah, you're supposed to do that.
Yeah, I didn't know that the rule was instituted when Matthew did it a long time
you
ago.
had no idea.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that I could or couldn't do it, yeah.
Do you think that this has been, so for what I'm talking about, it feels like Arthur Smith has talked about how they have been limiting the snaps, or they are going to limit the snaps for George Pickens.
Yeah, it's about 60% of the way through the show, so your load management is...
It's about time.
You're
I'm
done.
gonna take off.
You're done.
Yeah. Done.
He talked about how he did this in Tennessee with Derrick Henry. He talked about how he did this in
know.
Tennessee with A.J. Brown. And I have...
Dude, not good things to remind us
Yes,
of.
exactly. Yeah. Why are you saying this? Do you think this is a demotion for George Pickens right now?
There's something going on. Let's they can say whatever they want to say, but clearly there is something going on. I'm not buying load management for a 3rd-year wide receiver.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right? George Pickens will either be wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 91 this weekend. I just don't see any in between.
And that's probably, I mean, it's funny. We compared him to who all offseason? This is now the Drake London of the Arthur Smith offense. He's a 29% target share this season. Obviously, London had big target shares in that offense.
How fake is that number?
Yeah, 7.2 targets per game. Check this out. Last year, remember Drake London had that 1 target, 0 catch game in week 1. After that, he averaged 7.2 targets per game. The exact same number as George Pickens is at this season. Kind of unreal. So
Pickens yet to be a top 20 wide receiver so far this season. It was just George Pickens.
Pickens, yeah.
Yeah, like the only game he had that was like legit awesome for fantasy, which wasn't even a top 20 wide receiver finish, by the way, was the game in which they were playing from behind against Indianapolis, right? It was the game that I was talking about in regards to Justin Fields earlier on in the show. Super talented player, but if you don't think there is something going on right now, I have no idea what to tell you.
Yeah, he does. I mean, I'll say this. He has 7+ targets in every game, or all but one game so far this season. So maybe against this Raiders secondary, there's a chance he does have that big game, but there's reason for caution here, yeah.
Okay. Well, that doesn't feel great. There's nobody else that I would start in that wide receiving core. Like, if he is demoted, is there someone in my mind that I think is going to get more targets? Right? Like,
and Jefferson, Calvin Austin,
nothing.
Roman Wilson maybe someday, but he's not playing right now.
Pat Freiermuth, like I'm not feeling.
Oh well, he's borderline.
He's already a borderline
top
tight end
15.
one.
Yeah. Even Najee Harris was a big letdown last week in a good spot, and no Warren or Patterson again. So you're probably starting Harris, but it's just not good.
Don't know that it's a major concern yet, but Freiermuth also added to the injury report yesterday. He was limited. So
we just start listing players not on the injury report because it is unreal.
So make it, yes, please.
Tanya's into that plan, yeah.
Unreal.
All right, let's talk about a couple of bounce back opportunities here in Week 6. Stephania, I want to start with you. Breece Hall has been, I guess I would say, frustrating. Oh, I'm so sorry. I skipped ahead.
Yeah.
My fault. We're doing
injury updates.
Answering the bell. We got a bunch of
Maybe
injury
just
updates.
we had so many injuries. You
know
were
wanna know
like,
why?
I am tired of hearing about injuries because I wouldn't blame you.
We got too many things that we're talking about here. I had my own separate set of notes here,
It's
so that
quite
was
all
my
right.
fault.
I've
All
got
right.
several pages myself.
So let's talk about some of these major injury updates that we have. Let's start with the Indianapolis Colts because it feels like
entire offense.
basically, the entire offense is on the injury report.
I think Stephen Holder put it best, like their best players are on the injury report right now. Like their entire offense of starters is there. And we know that Michael Pittman has a back issue, potentially a candidate for injured reserve, according to Adam Schefter. We shall see. He dealt with a back injury earlier, so maybe it's something that flared up. They haven't given us the nature of the injury, but obviously it's something they're concerned about getting it right. Meanwhile, Josh Downs injured his toe in Week 5, hasn't practiced yet. It's kind of gone under the radar because they are dealing with so many injuries that this one just nobody really caught on, and now it's something where, hey, it could be a question mark. We'll see what happens today. Asking around, I didn't get the sense that anybody really had a flavor one way or the other how this was going to go. And then Jonathan Taylor, he is improving. It's still unclear whether he's going to be available. He said the biggest difference this week is he's not having pain in his ankle anymore. So encouraging there. We'll see if they feel like he's ready to go.
And are we expecting to have Anthony Richardson under center? Or is this gonna
Yes.
be on the
Oh, yeah. Oh, so many.
I know. I'm not the only one.
No, but Anthony Richardson, that's actually probably their best news, right? So I focused on the negative first, but here's the positive. Anthony
guy.
Richardson actually really moving well, kind of paying a lot of attention to how he looks moving and throwing the ball because, again, we were just talking about Derek Carr and with an oblique injury being a problem. Anthony Richardson, they labeled an oblique after it was called a hip. His was a little different. It was more of a direct contact bruising-related issue. But now he's moving well enough. It looks like he is on track to play, barring a setback.
Let's imagine a world in which there's no Jonathan Taylor, no Josh Downs, and no Michael Pittman Jr. Pittman is the one that we feel most definitive about at the time of this conversation.
Yep.
I would say this. A.D. Mitchell and Alec Pierce, to me, are both like you throw a dart and you hope for the best. Pierce would be my, I was going to say preferred option. But even Pierce comes with some serious risk, right? We talked about this on the show yesterday, right? He has not had more than 7 targets in a game since 2022. This is a low-volume, high-octane player, averaging over 28.3 yards per catch this season. So if he plays, what you're hoping for is that he finds some of that white chocolate magic. That's his nickname.
That's
Just
his
go ask his
nickname.
wide
Yeah,
receivers
yeah.
coach, Reggie Wayne. But you also have to be prepared for the possibility of a 2-catch, 27-yard effort from Alec Pierce.
Need a home run ball. Yeah.
Meanwhile, with A.D. Mitchell, Mike mentioned this a couple of days ago, that like when he plays, they throw him the football.
Yeah.
That seems to be the rule of thumb.
Yeah, and I think Ashton Dolan's still there, buried, right? When he's called on to play, they like to target him as well. Can Reggie Wayne take some snaps, do we think? Is that allowed?
Seriously.
Honestly,
They might need it.
he might probably still have some.
Here's the thing, Andy Mitchell, who I loved him in the preseason. I tried to get him on every single roster, and I just haven't felt like the utilization has been there as much as I was hoping for. Yeah, well, imagine with so many injuries, in some cases I've lost him. But I will say, and Field, you'll appreciate this, he talked about having to mature as a receiver, and he said sometimes, he's just trying to do a little too much. People were asking him how he felt about it. Did you see him give this quote?
No.
He said, sometimes I try to put a little hot sauce on it when all I really need is salt. So
That's a great
good one.
quote, by
that's
the
a
way.
great quote.
Stealing that one.
I just my heart is there for Andy Mitchell, but right now it feels like if you look at just the points delivered because of the big play potential from Alec Pierce, that's where the points.
If Jonathan Taylor doesn't go from this running back standpoint, I don't love the idea of playing Trey Sermon, especially because, like last week, I know he got some passing game volume, which really helped elevate his fantasy production. But this week, taking on the Tennessee Titans, it doesn't really feel great. He'd probably be like a top 25, top 30, running back, but not one that you feel confident.
And the Colts will use a
running back by committee.
two-headed
That's right.
backfield. Tyler Goodson played a lot last week. Yeah, so Sermon's a preferred flex, I would say, but
Flex.
but them top two receivers out. I mean, that's half their targets. They're going to try to run the ball with
This would be
Richardson and the
a
running back.
Richardson week.
Yeah, no
Please,
doubt.
run the football.
Actually, and there's another little locker room nugget. Anthony Richardson talking to reporters because, of course, the question is going to be about him getting hurt, right? That's the label now. He's worried about the injury-prone label, and he said, "I'm going to do whatever I need to do. Slide, get out of bounds. I need to be there for my teammates." It sounds like he's actively really taking this to heart. So
Time for that.
We need.
we'll see.
Yep.
Time.
All right, let's talk about Ramondre Stevenson, Stephania. What can you tell us about him, and will we see him in our lineups?
Ramondre Stevenson, he said, I was trying to find my notes on him. Oh, he said in the game he felt a helmet right into my calf. That was his quote. Had to make sure I was good, but then felt like he could he could keep going. He hasn't practiced since. So something that he thought he would be okay moving forward, maybe not. So a little concerning. We'll see what happens today.
So Antonio Gibson will be the next man up, but Mike, is it going to be a committee in the Patriots back?
To some extent. I feel probably better about Gibson than some other guys because we've seen him play that role, right, as a lead back. So I would definitely give him an edge. Maybe he's in the RB2 conversation because all these other running backs are out. JaMychal Hasty will be pretty substantially involved there as well. By the way, we talked about this last week about the whole dynamic of like Stevenson being benched.
Yeah.
One carry for Gibson, and then Stevenson was in there and took over again.
That's how you send a message, Coach.
He showed him.
Bench him for a
fumble.
whole play.
Did it work? Yes, it worked.
Yes, it worked. Yes, it worked in that one.
Seemed to work, yeah.
Stephania, let's talk about the Giants. We had mentioned Malik Neighbors a little earlier on in the show. You gave us an update there. But Devin Singletary, what can you tell us about him?
It sounds like he is uncertain for week 6, still limited in practice, has a groin injury. Tough for a running back when you're dealing with that kind of soft tissue injury. So, again, Friday is a big day. We're hitting all these before they do their final practice report, so we shall see.
So we saw a really nice day last week, obviously, from Tyrone Tracy. But, Mike, is this going to be, and we haven't really talked about this a lot on the show, but would this be another running back by committee situation here?
That's just a new concept that's coming around in the league. I mean, they tried to. They tried to right out of the gate last week, but we talked about it yesterday. Eric Gray fumbled early on. And that was it. He really didn't see the field. I don't know if at all the rest of the game, but it was a Tyrone Tracy show. We liked him as a mid-round prospect this year. He looked at the combine and he got the opportunity and ran with it. He was well over 100 yards, looked good. So I would expect him to be the preferred choice and an offense, again, that's starting to show some signs of life. So I would call him, again, a flex option, but you're going to see another running back involved there.
And I think if Singletary does play, I do think Singletary will start the game for the Giants. I just think that Tyrone Tracy will be more involved than he had been prior, which was some, but not. It was the Singletary show for the most part in the first 4 weeks of the season.
That happens a lot. I mean, Singletary, especially in Buffalo, they just would not commit to him as a feature back. The only time we've seen that really, aside of like one game here or there with Buffalo, was last year in the second half with Houston. But generally, he's not the biggest back. He's generally considered to be kind of a committee back. And you're right. They're probably looking for an excuse to get another running back involved there.
Right, I would say more like I think people are wondering, like, hey, if given how well Tyrone Tracy played last week, he's got to be the starter now, right? I don't think that would happen. That'd be my guess, yeah.
Singletary's like the most reliable running back in the NFL. Like he's just
They like him.
yeah, they love him. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a big fan. All right, Stephania, a couple wide receivers for the Eagles. I think we're getting both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith back.
It looks that way. You happy, Mike?
Yeah, we're gonna turn the season around right now.
Is that right? Oh, yeah, it's nothing. No time like week 6 to get it going.
At home, the Browns are beat up on defense. I don't know if Denzel Ward's going. The Eagles are set up for they have to.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't get it going now,
Remember
they
when
might be the next team.
A.J. Brown, again, he had the hamstring injury that happened during practice. Didn't think it was a big deal. Look how much time he's missed. But I think that really helped them to extend him through the bye, give him that extra time to recover. And Devonta Smith coming back from a concussion. So good news that he's recovered. It was definitely scary when his injury happened. So nice to see both of them back. I bet you Jalen Hurts is happy to get these two back for him.
This is a situation where when they come back, you're not expecting like a ramp-up period. We're good to go to deploy him in our fantasy lineup, right?
No, and I don't think they really want that. It's interesting. It's a very good question because sometimes there are things that require a ramp up. Like we know that Nick Chubb is getting close to coming back for the Browns. He's coming off a major knee surgery. You expect the volume to be predictably slow at the beginning and hopefully increase. With these guys, with A.J. Brown, it'll be a test, right? Because the first explosive play he has to make, if the hamstring feels good, like you're just letting him go.
Good to go.
And Devonta Smith, once you're cleared to return to everything. So no limitations on him either.
Love it. All right, we're going to keep this train rolling. When we come back, we're talking Week 6 bounce back. Stick around. Back here on Fantasy Focus Football, Daniel Dopp, Stephania Bell, Field Yates, and Mike Clay, bounce back players here in Week 6, guys that underperformed recently. Field, I'm going to start with you.
Nope.
Breece Hall.
I'm going to save that one for later. You can talk with him.
Oh, you're right. That's a good call. Mike, I'm going to start with you. Breece Hall, 2 down weeks out of the last 3. Do you think that he's in a spot with a new play caller and a new head coach to be able to bounce back?
Yes, I don't want to, Field stat guy now. I don't want to steal all your stats for later, so I'll just give you a couple here. Look, I know he's had 2 duds in a row, but prior to that, 20-plus touches, 80-plus yards, a touchdown, and 18-plus fantasy points in 3 straight games to open the season. And, of course, great matchup against the Bills. Most fantasy points allowed to running backs, 19-plus already to 4 different running backs. And how about this? Breece Hall, we know, good pass catcher. The Bills have allowed the most targets, catches, and receiving yards to running backs so far this season. Yes, I think it's a bounce-back week.
Mike, that was a great non-statistically laced answer right there. No numbers at all. Thank
Love
you.
it, Mike.
Plenty of other stats for you.
That's what I expect to change the most. Like, pass the ball to Breece Hall. Like, I think he has been underutilized in the passing game. His utilization there has gone down from the first 2 weeks, progressively since then. Come on, Aaron Rodgers, you need the outlet.
Yeah, we got a lot of it early on.
Breece Hall's there.
He's still top 3 in targets and routes, believe it or not, at running back, but it feels like it's trailed off a little bit recently. I'm with you.
All right, Field, I'm going to ask you about Zach Moss, but I'm going to start with Stephania because I feel like both of these running backs, Zach Moss and Chase Brown, were limited at practice. Do you have any updates on what they
you
can do for
don't
us?
feel like you are correct. He didn't practice Wednesday. Zach Moss did not. Was limited on Thursday because of this foot issue. I think that it's relatively minor, and the expectation is he's going to play. The Chase Brown one is a little more concerning. Just added yesterday with a quadriceps issue. He had been fine. Like, this was a during practice downgraded to limited, so you wonder what happened, right?
Yeah.
You can't get the information. The reporters aren't there until they show up Friday to gather it. So as we sit here right now this morning, we don't have it yet.
2-part question then. Do you think that he can bounce back even with Chase Brown there? And if there's not a Chase Brown, how much does that elevate?
Yeah, I think it puts him right inside the top 20 if there's no Chase Brown this week. We talked about this on yesterday's show. I had Zach Moss ranked around like wide receiver, running back 24 or so. We talked about how it feels like a lot has changed. Zach Moss has still kind of held his own value, still clearly going to be the number 1 running back in terms of snaps, has a decent shot to be the number 1 running back in terms of carries every single week. So I think this is a pretty good player in a very good offense. He'll be like a top 25 back if Chase Brown does play.
Yeah, there's been a lot of combined volume for the 2 backs the last 2 weeks, but Moss is still he still has an 80 to 47 snap edge over the last 2 weeks. So he could push for 25 touches in this game. I don't think Travion Williams is going to be a big threat. I think Moss will push for 25 touches here against the Giants if Brown is out.
Man, I would love to see that. 3 weeks with 14-plus fantasy points, and I would love to see that continued production because he was a guy that a lot of us looked at as far as like a zero RB, RB2 or a hero RB, RB2 that has had some nice weeks here. So hopefully that continues. Stephania, I want to talk about Dontavian Wicks, but I want to ask you a question first. Because Dontavian Wicks was a guy we had big expectations for last week, obviously with no Romeo Doubs.
No comment.
And Christian Watson. First question, though, is how long have you been doing injury analysis here at ESPN?
This is my 18th season.
18th
Started
season.
at age 20.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
incredible. So you've done like countless Sports Centers, Fantasy Focus podcast, FF Now's, Outside the Line pieces. You've had your own full-length feature with Alex Smith, amongst a number of other things. But have you ever gotten into a Twitter argument with someone's father over an injury diagnosis and then double down on your bad take rather than just take the L and move on?
I have not.
Okay. I was just curious. You want to know why? It's because you're the consummate professional, Stephania. That's why we come to you for all of these things. I was just curious.
Daniel, I love you guys.
What can you tell us about Christian Watson's?
I can tell you that,
Christian Watson's injury.
Christian Watson's ankle injury, it was an unusual one, I will say that. Not your typical mechanism of injury. Limited in practice, great to see him out there both days doing some work. This is not the week that I expect to see him back. It's going to take a little longer, I think. Okay. So I would plan on it being a little bit longer. But I will be pleasantly surprised if they do get him back. But I think, I think they're going to be careful with this.
It doesn't feel like this.
Hold on, I'm arguing with at Mama Dopp is like saying that her son is the best on Fantasy Focus, and I'm telling her she's wrong. Like,
yeah, that's fair. You know what, Mike? You keep doubling down on that.
Here's
all
the
right.
thing. Mama Dopp is so kind and sweet. She would be. She'll just say, "Oh, I love you too, Mike." To go.
Yeah, I know she will. Yeah, but I'm trying now. I'm still going at her anyway.
Nothing wrong with that.
Take her down.
Meanwhile, she's like, "No, Mike. Like, I could make a pretty good case that you are better than Daniel, but neither of you could hold a candle to Jeff Darlington."
That's true. That is true. That is true. She does love Jeff.
I thought you were going to say you, but that was a good.
That was a better pivot.
Callback.
That was a good pivot right there. Dontavian Wicks only has one finish inside the top 25 this week. It feels weird to call it a bounce back. Did I say this week? Sorry, this year. Feels weird to call it a bounce back when you've only seen it one time so far this year.
Yeah, the one thing Christian's dad indicated was that there was a good chance, I believe were his words, that he's playing this week. So I actually put Watson back in the projections because he obviously knows what's going on there. That doesn't mean it's a lock, but I already had Wicks as probably a bench anyway, but if Watson's back, it's almost definitely because he's the 4 there.
And Romeo Doubs is going to be back in this one, only a 1-game suspension from last week. So
Narrative Free show up there or no?
Yeah, I think it's possible.
Romeo Doubs, like, I don't think he was a squeaky wheel because it sounds like he just went home and just didn't show up to work. Rather than
the wheel, he just shut the wheel off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't squeaking, it was just not moving.
Did I also see that Tucker Kraft was added to the injury report, Stephania?
Yes.
Back injury from carrying my team's last
Is that what it was?
Me too.
So here's the thing. As you guys may have noticed, their tight end Luke Musgrave didn't practice on Thursday, and Tucker.
IR.
Yep. And so Tucker Kraft was added Thursday. So now you had 2 tight ends on the injury report, limited with a groin issue, but was talking to reporters in the locker room after practice, seemed normal, not something that they were even like dialed into. So this might be one of those where they're just limiting the reps. At least it didn't appear to be serious. Just to kind of close the loop on the Packers and the players who will play, we're talking about the wide receivers and Christian Watson's injury. They have had players who are close and sometimes decided just to be a little bit more conservative and hold them back. So I think that they're probably in that range right now with him. Like, my understanding is that he's made good progress, but they may ultimately make the call to hold off. So again, I wouldn't be surprised it could go either way.
Just a random, I wonder if we'll think about this in 2027 or so. I wonder if Tucker Kraft's evolution is to become the next George Kittle.
He plays similarly.
He plays like his personality.
Agreed.
He's got the
Saying
fire.
just a random thought, just like put that somewhere in your brain, and just 3 years from now, it's either a great take or a terrible take. Which I've got plenty of those on the resume, so I won't feel bad if I miss on this.
Did you see the Tucker Kraft mic'd up?
I did not.
Because then you would know that your call is, you could be right on the money.
Sweet.
Yeah, remember, him and Musgrave were both second round picks? They were both second round picks, right? I believe it was, or second and third. Second and third. So usually like guys, like you see how they progress, and one will maybe separate themselves, but like you thought with Kraft missing so much time late in the offseason that he'd probably be limited early in the season. They'd give Musgrave as a second round pick, like a lot of runner. That was not the case. Kraft was hurt, and then he came in, and he was like, he is clearly the one, was playing an every down role right out of the gate, and that tells me that there's something there. He's the guy.
I don't feel good about this next one, but I'm just going to say it really quickly. I think the producers are taking a shot at me. CeeDee Lamb. Massive bounce back week potential here. I think this is going to be one of those spots where you can see these fantasy points piling up for your fantasy team. Lions have allowed the second most fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position, and ESPN Bet has this game with the highest expected total of the week at 52.5.
We're due for a shootout between these two teams.
Yeah.
We just need a bigger target share for CeeDee Lamb. It's the lowest it's been in years, down to 22%. But, yeah, a receiver, to your point, has at least 15 fantasy points and 4 times already this season against your Lions in only 4 games. So maybe this is a CeeDee Lamb bounce-back game. I'd always bet on yes for him.
I would
miss
agree.
David Montgomery. I can't wait to watch him play football on Sunday.
All right, when we come back, we're talking Week 6 starts of the week. We'll see where we go with that one. Stick around. We'll close this one out. Back here on Fantasy Focus, Daniel Dopp, Stephania Bell, Field Yates, and Mike Clay talking our starts of the week. I'm going to start on the other side. Mike Clay, your Week 6 start of the week is...
Let's go. Kirk Cousins.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. 4 touchdowns last week. He had a total of 4 in his first 4 games, but look at the splits. We talked about this yesterday. Played the Bucs and the Eagles. Light matchups. Had 6 total passing touchdowns in those games against the Steelers, Chiefs, and Saints. 3 of the best. He had 2 total touchdowns. So it's kind of a matchup thing. And what are we thinking about this matchup this week?
Good.
We're thinking good. They're playing the Carolina Panthers. Most touchdowns with 11 and the 6th most fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. He also, he's going to generate passing yards. We know that. 230 plus in 4 consecutive games. So I'm in on Cousins.
How many quarterbacks have less rushing yards than Kirk Cousins this year?
Have less?
Have less than?
Fewer would be the answer.
Does he have negative? I don't know.
He does. He does have negative rushing yards.
0?
This year. Yes.
Someone else, some other backup than
Matthew
Neal?
Stafford is the only other quarterback.
is that right?
Last
One of
one.
the 2 with kneel downs.
Yes, exactly. Field, where are you going on this one?
Well, see, I was going to tell you guys about why Breece Hall is my start of the week, and I had a bunch of numbers to support it, and then some jerk named Mike Clay took pretty much all.
Look, I only used half of my stats. I left you some.
Games to begin the season with over 18 fantasy points. I think the play caller shift could result in more attention being paid back to Breece Hall,
said all
as it
this.
should be. Yeah, correct. And the Bills have been terrible against running backs.
have
Breece
been.
Hall on Monday Night Football.
Why have the Bills been so bad against running backs?
Because they have very, very small front 7 players. To quote my good friend John Sutcliffe, Monday Night Football!
I love it.
Have you guys seen that video?
I have
Oh,
seen
yeah,
it. Yes.
it's so good.
Monday Night Football! I
good,
love
actually.
The
that.
best.
That is pretty
Well
good.
done.
Thank you. You want me to keep going or no?
Yeah, do it one more time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Monday Night Football!
Better than you're regurgitating Breece Hall stats, so you can.
Wow.
You guys are clearly best friends because look, you dressed in matchy.
You literally do look the same.
What happened is Mike looked into the Northern Lights last night. He looked directly into them.
did.
He got this new swag to him. He came in, swing in this morning, and mean.
Yeah. Well, that means usual.
Me, Mike. Yeah, that's fair.
You guys hit it my way. I have to hit it back to you, so I have to do my best.
Hey, stop talking. Let's hear from Stefan.
Stephania Bell. Where are you going with your start of the week, Stephania Bell?
Well, you like that, Mike? I'm going with
do like
Darnell
it.
Mooney. I'm going to Darnell Mooney to match your Kirk Cousins. Yeah, high five across the rim. Look, Kirk Cousins is playing like his hair's on fire. He's got 500 yards in his arsenal, so why not give more to the guy he threw 16 times out? He only had 9 receptions on the 16 targets, but clearly he trusts Mooney. If we've learned anything from these games that are close, who's he going to when it's on the line? One time Drake London, I think, but he has really relied on Darnell Mooney. He's been a solid pass catcher for him. You mentioned the matchup against Carolina Panthers, and I think there's going to be more to go around. I like Drake London, but I love Darnell Mooney as somebody who's probably, Drake London's a set it and forget it. Like people already know to start him. To me, Darnell Mooney is somebody, if you are looking and he's available, plug him in your
Yeah, 5 fewer targets in London this season, 1 per game. And we mentioned the Panthers. They're actually the worst in the NFL at covering the perimeter from a fantasy point standpoint. That's where Mooney and London primarily align. Ray McLeod, who we like as a deep league sleeper as well in this matchup, is in the slot. So Mooney and London in an outstanding spot.
Love it. Love to hear that. Basically, anytime someone plays the Panthers, you want to find a way to slide him into your
Bijan, Pitts, we'll take them all.
Everyone. All right, I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. in this one. 15 or more fantasy points in 3 games, but under 6 fantasy points in 2 other games. But here's the thing. He's the clear alpha wide receiver in this receiving crew. The Green Bay Packers have allowed at least 15 fantasy points to 7 different wide receivers so far through 5 games. The only other team to do that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. ESPN Bet has this game with the 3rd highest total on the slate, so expect a lot of points to be scored. If points are being scored, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a part of it.
Also, if you ever think about not making Marvin Harrison Jr. your start of the week, he will look you in the eye and put
Wow, that's
daggers in
horrifying.
your pupils. Look at that.
I know what you're
Take that
doing.
That is
headshot
wild.
right
What am I doing here?
The Lions fan in you
Yeah.
is trying to will the Arizona Cardinals to generate all kinds of offense and defeat the Packers.
I'm not saying I'm not doing that, but that's not the reason why I chose it. I chose it because I'm wide receiver 15, highest of all the wide receivers, of all the rankers here than you guys are. So,
I'm a bigger Marvin Harrison Sr. guy this week, but we can debate.
you know what? He might suit up for the Colts this week as well. Him and Reggie Wayne both
know
could
what?
come
We
back.
could use them.
How fun with
Austin Collie, bring them all back.
It would be like, yeah, dude. That's,
We're going in the way back.
You had one good year.
all right, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Today's show is presented by Boost Mobile. Don't forget to love each other, be kind to yourself, and tune in to Fantasy Football Now, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great week. We'll see you.